Hello again. Today is doorstep and A-pillar. We are getting to the point where we need to cut out the floor, and I can't cut out the floor completely until I've put this doorstep in on the driver's side. Currently we've still got this side of the floor still intact, which I'm going to use as a guide for the doorstep. Did the same on the other side before I cut that half of that floor out on that side, and that doorstep went very well, and it's where it needs to be. I'm happy that it's the door is square in the hole, the doorstep is square with the door. Slight adjustment required, but that's going to be the case with everything we do. The main thing is that the A-pillar on the passenger side wasn't disturbed, so the hinge holes are exactly where they were when we started. The rest of the door frame, as far as I can tell, is all original, so it all fits as it should, and the doorstep that I fitted in, I'm happy that it's where it should be. And the same goes for this side. What I'm doing with this A-pillar here, this A-pillar on this side is way more rotten at the bottom here. The other one on the passenger side was nowhere near as bad, so from here down this is all rot from somewhere around here, everything else, and it's virtually, there's about a quarter of it missing. That's how bad it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this A-pillar repair part, which is the complete piece, but I'm only going to use the bottom part of it. And what I want to do is I want to cut away as much of the rust obviously as possible, but I don't want to cut away more than I have to. There's some rust on the A-pillar, yes, of course, there's some rust on the inside, but it's only light pitting, I would say. It's not bad, it's not structural. Just here, where my finger is here, there is, on the inside, there is a bit missing where it's rusted away. So I'm going to cut up from, but just above that, but I want to try and keep the hinge holes if possible. My original thought was to cut it somewhere up here, above these holes. And I thought, what's the point of that? Because first of all, I run the risk of getting these hinge holes when I put in the new piece in the wrong place. And if I don't have to do it, why should I make work for myself? The top ones are clearly going to stay, because that up there I'm going to repair the top part of that where there's a little hole in the frame there. But the rest of it's solid, so I'm happy that I can leave all of that in. There's absolutely no point in cutting out good steel. And what there is that's rusty with pits in it, I can put rust converter on it anyway. Now I've got Cure Rust converter. I'm probably going to use that up. There is all sorts of different ones on the market, and I think there are better ones than Cure Rust, but that's what I'm going to use for now. But first of all, before I get to any of that, I've got to cut out all of this and get rid of that. Now what I've done is I've marked the line that I'm going to cut, and it is literally, if you can just see the hole there, it's literally right on the bottom edge of the bottom hinge hole. And I've scribed a straight line all the way along to take out this part of the A-pillar down, and then when I've got that cut out, I shall offer this one up and then cut this to shape to fit this. That's the plan, and then I'll weld it in. There we have it. So you get a bit of an idea of what it was like on the inside, but if you look at the top part of it up here, you can see where the rust has stopped effectively. So the bottom part was where it was creeping, gets to there, all stops. And you can see the inner panel here is also rusty. This is missing. That will get replaced when I do the inner wing side. So the main thing for this is to get this step in so the floor can go in. I've got lots of other prep to do, but I've got repairs to the toe board to do all around here and everything. So the main thing is that's off now. That's going to go in the scrap bin, and then I can bolt that in there. so that the holes are in the right place, loosely, and then I can mark this on the back side with a pen, with a marker, scribe or whatever, and cut off so that it exactly fits in that part there. Okay, so what I've done is I've cut the new A-pillar just high of where I need to actually cut it finally to meet with the old A-pillar here. This part here, that is the outer skin of the A-pillar, if you see what I mean. So there's an inner skin, which is where the door hinges on, and then over that fits the doorstep, which then goes round right angles and then away to the back. I've cut the bottom of the A-pillar off, the inner one. I've cut the new A-pillar piece just high of where this one's cut, the old one's cut off. I've left the bolt holes in so that I can line those bolt holes up so that they are exactly where they need to be. And then at the back of here, I can then mark where the bottom of the cut is on the new piece so that I can cut the new piece exactly to size to get it to fit. So that's what I've done. So I'm going to mark it on the back and then cut it, because once it's cut, it's cut. With steel, at least we can weld it back on if it goes wrong. But I don't want it to go wrong, and I want it to be right. You might say, why am I taking so much care over this piece here? This is not a critical piece in terms of where it sits and everything. Well, it sort of is, because there's an indent here. This, if you can just see, there's a curve there and a curve there. This is where the door hinge, when the door is shut, that's what the door sits in. So that's got to be in the right place. And if the A-pillar part is not in the right place, then the doorstep won't fit properly over the top of it. So that's got to be exactly where it needs to be. Plus as well, anything that happens like that, it all amplifies further on down the line. So if you get this wrong, there's a fair, and that's it, that A-pillar is the indent there is in the wrong place and the door doesn't shut properly. That means you've got to adjust the door to make it fit, but then it might not fit at the back, it might not fit at the top, etc, etc. So you've got to take care with all of it. You can't just chuck it together. And because I'm not hugely experienced at doing this, I am taking my time with it and really making sure that I'm getting it right. So I've looked at it and looked at it and looked at it. I spent most of the day yesterday looking at this and just sort of deliberating over what to do just for this tiny little piece, because I don't want to mess it up. I don't want to make work for myself. So I'll cut it, I'll mark it along the back and I'll give it a cut, and then it should come back more or less in exact, well, I say more or less, what have I just said? It should come back exactly in line with the bottom of that cut part of the A-pillar. Well, I think I'm there. This is never going to be fine tolerance, but if I can get the doorstep lined with the floor and I can get that bottom A post, that's got to be spot welded or plug welded in my case. The bottom of the footstep and the bottom of the A-pillar have got to be plug welded together to give that strength. As long as I can get that lined up, that's what matters. I'm pretty certain I'm there. There's a cutout here on the outside part here. This mimics the inside A-pillar cutout for where the door hinge folds in when the door's shut. There's quite a little leeway. There's quite a lot of leeway up and down there to get that in the right place. But I'm going to use the floor. Once this is in, I'm going to use the floor to line this up, and the existing side here, this part here where it curves around. But I'm going to fit the door as well before I do that. But I'm going to get that bottom part welded in, and we'll go from there. I think that is good. Done it on both sides where I can get to at the back behind here, and I can actually see through where it's penetrated as well, so I know I've managed to glue them together pretty well. Where I've got it so close to the hole, of course, it was going to burn away because I've got nothing to weld to. I'm not too worried about that. I can live with that little bit of a melted hole there. We know that the top hole is in good condition where it should be. The bottom one, most of it's where it should be, but that's okay. I'm happy with that. That forms the basis of the hinge for the door. Nice and strong. Next thing is the doorstep. So I'll get that offered up and see where we're going to go from there. Well, that was about 3 hours ago when I last switched the camera on, and I finally got this doorstep lined up. It's clamped in at the minute. It's all ready to go and be welded. I've got a uniform line along the bottom edge with the bottom of the door, and I'm happy with the gap there. You're going to see a wider gap here because if you can see, I've cut away the rear quarter panel. And on what we're going to do is we're going to put in a new rear quarter panel because it's so badly rotten there, and also along the top edge as well, it's rotten along the top. So I've got a complete new quarter panel. I'm not going to mess around putting in panels there because I want as little filler in this as I possibly can get, and if I put in a panel along there, I'm going to have to fill it no matter how good my welding is. And I just don't want filler if I can possibly help it. There's going to be the odd bit, but I don't want great loads of it because all that happens is if it doesn't go on properly and you get damp under it, it soon comes off. And I'll be doing that myself. I'm not going to get anybody else to do that. So yeah, I don't trust myself to get that right. So yeah, whole complete panel, as I say, but it means that this has to sit back, and the gap here, this gap here, is narrower than this gap here currently because the new quarter panel has got to sit round the corner inside the door there. And we just open the door and I'll show you what I mean. So you can see there that the quarter panel's got to come round and up to this edge here. This part here has got to be flush with the door jamb, the B pillar, and here as well I've got to sort of, once I've started welding this in, I've got to sort of manipulate that to get that into the corner there because it's a bit out of shape at the moment. But I was going to use the floor as a guide, but the floor, as you can clearly see, is the old floor. It's slightly different. Now, although this is a heritage panel and in theory 100% correct for fitting, you're always going to have to do some jiggery pokery. This, for example, here, it fits around this bend, this radius here. It's fitting perfectly fine on the old radius that was there. But it then does seem to dip down. However, what I've decided to do is I've got the door square in the hole all the way around. It may need to go up a tiny bit, but it's actually square in the hole. There's uniform gaps all the way around the door. And not only that, but I've also got my swage line lined up here as well. So I'm happy with that. I'm really glad with that. And I've set the doorstep effectively to the door. Now, as I said already, the A pillar hasn't moved. The bolt holes are in exactly the same place. So the door is where it should be. It's got a little bit of adjustment on the holes because there's some clearance on the holes. And I've set this doorstep so that it is lining up with the door. And we've got a uniform gap here, and I'm pleased with what I've done. It's taken a heck of a long time to get there, but as I said already, I really want to make sure that this is right. As with all of these things, I've seen historical videos of when they were fitting up Minis in the factory, and if the doors didn't fit, I've seen them actually, the door might be twisted a little bit. I've seen them adjust it with bolts and screws and moving the plates around and putting shims in, but then I've also seen them leaning on the frame and twisting the door so the door would shut properly. You know, I mean, these are not Aston Martins at the end of the day. These were mass-produced British Leyland and Austin and all of that. They were built to a budget, and it fitted where it touched, and and you made do with what you had. So, you know, me trying to line up millimetre perfect doorways into doors and all of that sort of stuff, I'm probably wasting my time, but I want it to be as right as possible. But I will tell you a little story that I've got from when I used to work in the coach garage. The old mechanic in there, name was Bill. He was a strange character, but you know, aren't they all really? And he used to do all the bodywork. He used to do everything: mechanics, engines, axles, brakes, you name it, he'll do it. And he used to do the bodywork on the coaches. And we were talking about coaches rather than buses, so this was like private coaches. And one day he was doing the trim, the chrome trim, and back in the 70s, 80s, the chrome trim on the buses was really important. And he was doing the chrome trim, which basically covered up the gaps of all the aluminium panels in the coachwork. And he did one side one day. Next day, come in, carried on with the next side. Got to halfway through the day, and I was walking down the side of the bus, and I looked at his handiwork that he did the previous day, and it all looked fantastic and really good, and everything matched and lined up and everything else like that. And I walked around the other side to where he was working, and I looked at it, and I stood there for 5 minutes and sort of took it all in. And I said to Bill, I said, Bill, your chrome doesn't match the other side. None of it, it's all different lengths and different. He says, yeah, so what? I said, well, it don't match. He said, well, do you look at both sides at the same time then? So that shut me up. I was about 20 years old, and he was about, well, he hadn't retired, but I don't know how old he was, but he was ancient. And I thought, well, there's no answer to that. And he's perfectly right. You can't look at both sides at the same time. So I've spent all this time trying to get it right, and I want to get it right. But remember, you can't look at both sides at the same time. Well, that was a job that I've been putting off and putting off because I just wanted to be sure it was in the right place, and I was so worried that it was going to be wrong, and I'd only find out until it was too late. I did the other side without thinking. I lined it up to what was there. I didn't put the door in when I did the other side. I just lined it up to what was there, and it's all gone in without a problem. This one's gone in without a problem, but yeah, I don't know why I was scared of this one. But nonetheless, it's done. Doorstep is in. It's welded on the B pillar. It's welded on the A pillar. I've got to tidy it all up. I've only got a grinding disc at the minute. I haven't got any sanding discs, so I need to get some sanding discs to smooth that all down. I've plug welded it against the inner A pillar part, which has got the holes in for the hinges. I've plug welded all of that, and I've welded the seam all the way around the top to the bottom of the original A post. I've got this here is where I had the brace welded in, so I've ground that out and I've ground some holes in it, so I need to weld that up at some point, but I'm not going to worry too much about that until I start doing the inside of this inner wing here, because I'm going to be digging around in there at some point so I can finish that off. I've come to the end of the day. I've spent I have spent all day on this. This is what, 6 hours work to do this in, and yeah, a professional would do it in less than half that time, if not even less than that. But somebody that's doing them all the time. But you know, I am learning this as I'm going along, and I'm really trying to make the effort to make sure that it goes in properly. So anyway, it's done, and I can't change it. Well, I could change it, but I'm not going to. I've spent too long at it. The door's square. It's uniform gaps all the way around. I'm happy with it. The next thing is to start thinking about cutting out the floor. What I'm going to do next is I need to fix the rear subframe in place so that I can unbolt the subframe but leave it in place. So it's bolted in at the minute. I'm going to fix it with a couple of pieces of angle steel so that it is fixed to the car in the position it would be in when it's in the car properly and bolted to the floor. I'll take the bolts out off the heel board, and then I'll start cutting out the floor. And when I put the floor back, the new floor, I can bolt it straight to the subframe, and I know the subframe is in exactly the right place, which means the floor will be in exactly the right place for the rear end. And then I've got the floor actually sits inside the toe board. So it's not outside, it's inside. Some people put the floor in on the wrong way around, and they put it so that the ledge is on the outside of the toe board, which means you can get water down inside the lip, because the lip is the wrong way round. So the floor goes inside the toe board, and the toe board I've got, there's bits wrong with it, but most of it's good. So I can go up to that, take the old floor out, cut all that away, see what I've got left with the toe board, so that I can then marry that up to the new floor, and then repair the toe board as required up to the new floor. That's the next job. Wow. I hope you enjoyed the video. It was clearly a tutorial, this one. If you're doing something like this, at least hopefully it gives you an idea of what you're up against. These things are never simple, they're never easy. Nothing worth doing is easy. So, you know, you've got to spend some time, you've got to take your time at it, you've got to measure, and measure again, check it, measure it, check it, because once you've welded it in, that's it. You've got a whole start again. If you've welded it in and you've got to cut it out, you've got to start from scratch. Good that you can do that with steel, but yeah, you don't want to be doing that if you can help it. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's been of use to you. If you learned something, great. If you want to ask me any questions, then please do. If you want to make any comments, if you're shouting at the television going, don't do it like that, that's wrong, you're wrong, don't do it like that, no, what's he doing, what's he think he's doing, what the hell? Anything like that, let me know. Sometimes I think that with some people when I'm watching people do stuff, but I never say anything. Because there's more than one way to do a job, and I'm doing it my way, and I think I'm doing it right. Please subscribe if you haven't already, because that always helps our channel gain more people, more views, more subscribers. And we want to get out there to show people what we're doing. And if you've got one of these, then hopefully it's helped you and inspired you to get on with yours. Put a like on if you've liked the video, comment if you want to. But until next time, take care and bye for now.